draft night 2024, the Arizona Cardinals made Marvin Harrison Jr. the 4th overall pick.
Hello?
Marvin.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, man, this is Monty at the Cardinals. Listen to me now, okay? It's been you, man.
With the 4th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State.
And at that moment, nobody was questioning the decision. He was the son of Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison Sr., a Heisman finalist at Ohio State. And
Harrison, open space, there he goes! Marvin Harrison Jr., touchdown, Ohio State!
Guy nicknamed Maserati Marv because of the way he dominated on the field.
Over the middle, caught, Harrison, touchdown, Maserati Marv! Marvin.
Everything pointed to the fact that he was ready, and scouts said he was the safest pick in the class. Then the NFL happened and everything changed. The weird phenomenon is that there isn't just one thing that you can point to explain why Marv became a flop. But to understand that, we have to go back through his bloodline. Marvin Harrison Sr. spent 13 seasons with the Indianapolis Colts, and by the time he retired, he had put up numbers that made him one of the most feared receivers of that era. 1,431 career receptions and 82 touchdowns with 8 Pro Bowls and a Super Bowl ring to show for it. When you grow up as his son, people watch you differently. They want to see if the apple fell far from the tree, and if you can do what Dad did, or if you're just riding his reputation. For Marvin Harrison Jr., that pressure was there from day one when he says highlights, and every highlight got replayed against the same standard, and he never backed down from it. The NFL is full of sons of former players who never lived up to their fathers, guys who had all the talent in the world but could never separate themselves from the shadow their old man cast. Marv was different. He carried the expectation with confidence, not arrogance, and that showed in the way he played. He never seemed rushed, never seemed under pressure at high school, even when the stakes got higher and the spotlight got brighter.
He's always been there. It's kind of when you just put it to your back of your mind, and you gotta go out there and play at the end of the day. So.
That calmness is what made scouts believe he was ready for the next level, even before he showed it at Ohio State. What made the Harrison legacy so intimidating was not just the numbers, but the way Marvin Harrison Sr. played the game. He wasn't the biggest receiver, not the fastest, but he was smart and virtually impossible to cover when the game was on the line. He ran precise routes and made plays look easy even when they were everything but. His son grew up watching all of that, learning the nuances of the position from someone who had already mastered them. And that's the kind of education that simply can't be replicated in a coaching session or training camp.
There, he talked to me a lot about just different routes, techniques to use, but he trusts Coach Hart.
When you have a Hall of Famer as your father teaching you the game from the time you can walk, you get advantages that other prospects simply don't have. Marv had those advantages and he used them. But all of that pressure and all those expectations never slowed him down. When Marvin arrived at Ohio State, he was already a known commodity, but what he did there still exceeded expectations. The Buckeyes had a conveyor belt of receiver talent, and year after year they kept rolling out guys who could play, but Harrison was the one who stood above all of them. The game showed it right away. He had this ability to run routes that made defenders look silly, to body up corners in the air and come down with catches that should have been impossible.
McCord under pressure, hit as he throws, end zone! Touchdown, Marvin Harrison Jr.
To dominate without needing to run a 40 at the combine because the tracking data and the eye test said he was fast enough. Gus Johnson started calling him Maserati Marv, and the nickname stuck because that's exactly what he looked like out there. Smooth and effortless. Every time he touched the ball, it felt like something special was about to happen, and more often than not, it did. By his junior season in 2023, he'd finished 4th in Heisman voting and left Columbus with 2,613 career receiving yards and 31 touchdowns across 3 seasons. And scouts weren't worried about the speed questions because everything showed he was ready. And for once, the tape was right. People talk about the eye test for a reason, and he passed it every single week on the field. You could watch him play for 5 minutes and see that he understood the position better than most receivers ever get to. He wasn't just running routes and catching balls, he was reading coverages while finding soft spots in the zone. The technical part of the position came naturally to him in a way that made you think he could play in his system with any quarterback. That's what made him such a high floor prospect. Even if nothing else translated, you knew he would be at least solid because he understood the little things that separate good receivers from great ones. The thing about Marv's dominance at Ohio State is that it wasn't just about the stats, though the stats were very impressive. It was about how he dominated games. When the Buckeyes needed a big play, Marv was the one who delivered. When the opposing defense had a plan for him, he found ways to beat it. When the pressure was the highest, he was at his best. That's the kind of player you build an offense around, the kind of player who makes everybody else on the field better just by being out there. And that's exactly what the Cardinals thought they were getting when they made him the 4th overall pick in 2024. So when draft time came, nobody was talking about whether Marv would go top 5. It was all about which team would be lucky enough to take him. The draft happened in April of 2024, and when the Cardinals turned in that card with Marvin Harrison Jr. on it, the room just made sense. He was the safest pick in that class, and it wasn't close. The 3 QBs went first as expected: Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, and then it was Marv at number 4.
Hello?
Marvin, listen to me now, okay? It's been you, man. We're excited to bring you here.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Here we go. Let's go.
With the 4th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Arizona Cardinals select Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver, Ohio State.
Who went after him tells the whole story. Malik Neighbors went to the Giants, Rome Odunze went to the Bears, Brian Thomas Jr. ended with the Jaguars, Xavier Worthy got drafted by the Chiefs, and Ricky Pearsall went to the 49ers. All first-round receivers taken after the Cardinals made Marv the 4th overall pick. The buzz around him was that he was generational, the kind of prospect who comes around the next 15 years, and the Cardinals did exactly that. They put him in that offense and expected him to deliver. That's exactly. Everybody was convinced that they were getting a sure thing, a player who would anchor the passing game for years to come and make Kyler Murray look like the quarterback the Cardinals always needed him to be. Looking back at that draft class now, it's kind of wild to think about where everybody went. Neighbors went to the Giants and immediately Odunze went to Chicago and showed promise before getting hurt. Brian Thomas Jr. went to Jacksonville and looked like one of the most complete receivers in his class until he fell off a cliff last season. Worthy went to Kansas City and gave the Chiefs another weapon they desperately needed, while Ricky Pearsall went to the San Francisco 49ers and added more depth to an already loaded roster. All of those guys went after Marv, and all of them have shown something in their first 2 seasons that Marv hasn't shown yet. It's not a knock on his talent, it's just a fact. The tape from college said he should have been one of the best receivers in this class, if not the best. And 2 years later, the NFL tape says something different. The NFL is funny that way. The draft isn't an exact science, and sometimes the guy who looks like the safest pick turns out to be the one who struggles the most while the guys taken after him figure it out faster. That doesn't mean the Cardinals were wrong for taking Marv 4th overall. It means the NFL is hard, and sometimes even the best prospects need more time than anybody expected to find their footing. He's still that talented player he was at Ohio State. The question is whether he ever gets a chance to show it in a situation that actually sets him up for success. His rookie season was a disappointment to say the least, and the numbers tell part of the story, and they're ugly. 885 receiving yards across the first season with a solid 8 touchdowns, but a catch rate around 53%, when the best receivers in the league are catching passes at 65 to 70%. There was this awkward relationship between Marv and Kyler Murray that never got sorted out, especially on back shoulder throws where one of them was always doing something the other didn't expect. It was like they were running different plays out there. He had a 10% drop rate too, and those weren't easy contested catches going off his hands. These were balls that hit him in the numbers and ended up on the ground at the worst times. Drops are a part of football, everyone has them. But when they start piling up at that rate, it becomes a pattern instead of an anomaly. You start to wonder if it's about confidence or trust, about the connection between the quarterback and receiver, or about something deeper that neither of them can figure it out. There was a Thursday night game against Seattle where he ran a dig route and stopped the route early and it got picked. He had drops that led to interceptions.
Murray throws, juggled, and intercepted.
And then in the same game, he came back and made this huge contested catch over Devon Witherspoon for a touchdown.
Murray to the end zone, reaching up Harrison.
That felt like maybe things were starting to click, but they never really did. Kyler Murray publicly defended him that season, said he never lost confidence in Marv, but the production never matched the expectations, and that was only year 1. The thing about that rookie season is that it was supposed to be the adjustment period. Nobody expected him to become the best receiver in the NFL right away, but you expected something, anything, to show you he was on the right track. Instead, you got a player who looked lost half the time and brilliant the other half, so you never knew which one you were going to get. There are flashes of the Maserati Marv everyone fell in love with at Ohio State, but they were just flashes. Moments of brilliance surrounded by a lot of inconsistent play that left everybody wondering what was going on. The challenge for Marv in his rookie year was not just adjusting to the NFL speed, though that was part of it. It was about finding his place in an offense that didn't seem to know how to use him. The Cardinals had invested the 4th overall pick in him, but they hadn't built their offense around his strengths. They were running the same plays they had run before, asking him to fit into a system that wasn't designed for a player like him. It's not an excuse, it's just a reality of the situation of what happened in Arizona during that first season. When you draft a player that high, you build the offense around him. You find ways to get them the ball in space. You have to create opportunities for them to make plays. The Cardinals didn't do that, at least not consistently. And that contributed to Marv's struggles more than people realize. The second season was supposed to be different. Marvin put on 11 pounds during the offseason and everybody expected him to take that next step. Instead, it got worse and the injuries made everything harder than it needed to be. This is where his luck completely ran out. He dealt with a concussion, then came down with appendicitis, which cost him 2 games and 10 pounds, nearly all the muscle he had put on that offseason. When he tried to jump right back into it after those 2 weeks, he hurt his heel. Both heels, actually. He played 11 games total, but 4 of those were affected by injury issues, and the body just kept betraying him down the stretch. He finished with 41 receptions for 608 yards and 4 TDs. Trey McBride had a huge year at tight end, and Michael Wilson emerged to take over as the wide receiver 1 on that team, which meant Marv was 3rd on the offense in production. When he stood in front of his locker for the final time that season, he summed it up in a few words: incomplete and unfortunate. He said it was a mental battle, and you could see it in the way he played. The confidence that made him Maserati Marv at Ohio State was nowhere to be found. But it was not just the injuries. It was everything around him falling apart at the same time. The offense never got on track, Kyler Murray missed time too, and the whole team just looked disjointed from start to finish. Marv wasn't the only problem, but he was the one everybody was watching, the one everyone expected to be the answer, and when he wasn't, it felt like everything else collapsed faster because of it. The injury bug hit him at the worst possible time, right when he was trying to build momentum and prove that year 1 was just a fluke. Instead of pushing forward, he was fighting to get back onto the field, and by the time he did, the season was already slipping away. The mental part of the game is often overlooked, especially for receivers who are supposed to be athletes first and thinkers second. But the best receivers in this league, the ones who survive for a decade and produce at a high level, they have that mental toughness that lets them shake off bad plays and bad seasons and come back ready to go. Marv had shown that mental strength in college, playing through injuries and still producing at a high level, but the NFL is a different animal, and 2 seasons of frustration can wear on even the strongest minds. You could see it in the way he carried himself on the field, less sure of himself, less willing to make the tough catches, and more hesitant when the ball came his way. That's the part that concerns me the most about his future, more than the drops or any single stat. When a player loses confidence in himself, everything else follows from that. Michael Wilson emerging as a wide receiver 1 on that team was a weird story that nobody talked about enough. Here's a guy who came out into the league with much less fanfare than Marv, taken in the 3rd round in 2023, and he just kept getting better. He understood the offense faster, he built a rapport with Kyler Murray, and he made plays when it mattered the most. It's not a knock on Marv's talent, it's just a reflection of how the NFL works. Sometimes a player who looks like a project outplays a player who looked like a sure thing, and you have to ask yourself why. The answer isn't usually just about talent, it's about situation and fit. Sometimes about how a player is being used in the offense. Wilson got opportunities because the Cardinals needed someone to step up, and he took advantage of them. Marv got the same opportunities, but he never took advantage of them. Not because he wasn't talented enough, but because of the injuries and everything along with his mental probably messed him up a little bit. The talent never left, but we're heading into year 3 and everything has only gotten much worse. The Cardinals hired a new coaching staff, Mike LaFleur as head coach coming over from the Rams and Nathaniel Hackett as offensive coordinator. The same Hackett who coached Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay along with the Jets and also got run out of Denver after the Russell Wilson experiment collapsed. The QB room is a mess. Jacoby Brissett was holding out in training camp, and just yesterday they got that situation cleared up, so he is going to be the QB1 of this season. Marv spent this offseason bulking up again, putting on even more muscle, trying to show up to year 3 in the best shape of his career. But the infrastructure around him is not getting any better. No good quarterback, new coaches trying to install a new system, and a guy who's 3rd on the depth chart behind a tight end and a receiver who emerged last year. What matters is whether 2 years in this situation says something permanent about what he can do, or whether the Cardinals have just been wrong to place him there for development in the first place. But at some point you have to ask yourself whether it's the player or the environment, and the environment keeps losing. You look at what the Cardinals have done with high draft picks over the years, and it's not a flattering picture. They've had picks in the top 10, they've had talent, and they have almost never turned it into consistent winning. At some point you have to wonder if the problem is not the players they draft, but the organization itself. The way they develop talent, the way they build offenses, the way they handle quarterbacks. Kyler Murray left for the Vikings, so he can no longer be used as an excuse. But the coaching changes bring even more uncertainty. Mike LaFleur comes from the Rams, where he was part of a staff that is known to develop receivers and get the most out of their passing game. But he's not calling plays here. That's Hackett's job. And Hackett's track record is mixed at best. He called plays for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, yes, but he also did it for the Jets and they sucked. But he also oversaw the disaster in Denver with Russell Wilson, a situation that imploded so spectacularly that it ended his tenure there in under 1 season. The combination of a new coach, a new offensive coordinator, a new system, and no good quarterback is not exactly a recipe for success for a receiver who's trying to rebuild his confidence and prove he belongs in this league. Marv isn't done. He's only going into his 3rd season and the talent has never been the question. What matters now is whether he gets put somewhere that actually knows what to do with them, or whether Arizona just keeps wasting what he has. Year 3 will answer that one way or another. But if the last 2 seasons have taught us anything, it's that the answer might not come in Arizona. That's not necessarily a bad thing for Marv's career. Some guys need the right situation to show what they have, and the Cardinals have not shown that they can provide that for a player like him. So there you have it. Watch this next video if you haven't already and subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching.